Danielle, and today, in honor of the summer premiere of the rest of Season 2 of the Shadowhunters TV show, we're going to be talking about Season 1. So for those of you who don't know, Shadowhunters is a TV show that airs on Freeform, which used to be ABC Family, in case you're living under a rock. And it is based on these wonderful books behind me, known as the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. And this is a kick-ass series about these people that protect humans from the demon world. And that's all I'm gonna say. But if you haven't heard of this series or you haven't read it yet, I highly suggest reading the books before you even watch the TV show. There was also a movie made about it that was pretty cool, not gonna lie. But definitely read the books first because the TV show goes in all sorts of places and the books are better, let's be honest. So I actually did watch the first season of Shadowhunters when it originally came out, but I couldn't remember anything about it and I want to watch Season 2, so I had to go back and watch Season 1 again. So today we're just going to be talking about my thoughts on Season 1, and I'm going to start off, I'm not going to spoil anyone if you haven't seen Season 1 yet, but as of now, I haven't seen Season 2 yet. So these are all my thoughts based on before I start watching what's out of Season 2. So when I first watched Season 1 of Shadowhunters, I remember not really liking it at all. It didn't really match the books and a lot of the characters were off for me. But the second time around, I think I had a different perspective on it. I tried not to compare it to the books as much, and I think I had a more open view to the show overall. But a lot of the things that I found that I really hated and that stuck out to me the first time seeing it, I ended up not liking it the second time around too. Without spoiling anything, I would say the season as a whole was kind of average for me. As of now, it's not a show that I would openly recommend to everyone, and I really want to. So I'm still gonna watch the second season, I'm still gonna keep watching no matter how bad it is. I'm just hoping that it does get better and it improves, and I think that there's plenty of room for that. I don't think they screwed anything up past the point of coming back, but there is a lot that could be changed. I think that if you really do want to start watching this show, that you should at least give it till episode 5. I mean, even with the book, it took a while to get into because there's so much world building in this story, but episode 5 was probably my favorite or my second favorite episode, and after that it started progressing and being slightly better each time. So that's basically all that I can say about the show without giving anything away. So that's it for my non-spoiler section. And now I'm gonna go into the details of the show, and I should also point out that I really do love this show. I love this series and I want to see it do well, and there were parts of it that I found hilarious. This is a funny show, but there were also a lot of things that I did not like that I think could be changed, and I'm gonna go into that stuff. So most of this is probably gonna be pretty negative, but I'm not trying to bash the show or the actors or the creators. I just want to express my opinions on how I felt about this show. So if you have not seen the show, you can leave now. Bye. And I'm gonna start talking about the show. So my favorite episode was probably episode 10, and I can't even say that with full confidence. It's actually the one where they go into the alternate dimension. This was probably the episode with the most plot holes because there's just gonna be that when you try to completely change the storyline because it's an alternate dimension. So there's a lot of stuff where you're like, how did this happen? They wouldn't actually be there all together if this was a different world completely. But it was fun to see all the characters acting differently for once. Izzy was hilarious as like a little geek, and Valentine was good, and there was that family dynamic that we got to see with Valentine, Jocelyn, and Clary, and Jace was kind of funny. He was like really emotional, but I really did enjoy watching this episode, and I kind of wish I could see more of this different dimension, but I don't think we're ever gonna go back to that, so that's fine, it's whatever. But if I were to consider all the plot holes that were in this episode, they kind of bothered me overall. So I guess I would have to say that episode 5 was my favorite. This is the episode where Alec and Clary go off to Clary's apartment to try to look for clues or for something that will lead them to Clary's mom. I think the reasons I liked this episode the most was because we got a lot more out of the actors. We got funny stuff from Alec, little interactions with Simon and Alec and Clary, and I thought they were a really good dynamic. It was just kind of better overall, and I think probably the main reason for this was because there wasn't a lot of Jace and Clary. I think the biggest problem with this show right now is how Jace and Clary feel together, and I don't know if that's the problem with the lines they're given. It seems really forced, their relationship, and it doesn't seem like there's any chemistry between them, and I can't tell if that's the actors or the writing, but I'm just not feeling it right now. Out of all the characters in this show, Isabel and Simon are probably my favorite. Simon is hilarious. Everything he does is amazing. Alberto Rosende did a fantastic job with every single line he was given and all the stuff he had to do for this season. So he is my favorite. But in the books, I think Jace is my favorite. And in the shows, he's kind of my least favorite, I think. Clary might be my least favorite too. And I don't hate Clary in the books. I like her. But I think in the books, Jace is my favorite. He's snarky and he's funny and he's witty and he says stuff and he's not like overly emotional. The lines in the show in general could have been better. Jace in the show is acting like he's trying to portray tough, like he has this stance. If he ever does have a joke, it's not funny and you're just kind of like, And I feel like the dynamic with Jace and Clary was just kind of all of a sudden they're like in love with each other and we don't ever see any attraction. They just kind of kiss and you're just like, why? 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 I don't get it. And Clary in this show just seems stupid. It seems like it's the lines. But then you have Simon over here. I mean, yeah, he's probably given a lot of jokes, but the way he delivers them, they're so funny. You'd think you'd look at the show and go, okay, if Simon can say all these lines that he's given, and they're the same people writing Simon's lines as they're writing Clary's lines, and if Simon can take these horrible lines and make them good, then why can't everyone else? Like, he's proof that they can still be delivered well. I don't know, it could also be the fact that Simon's just given more jokes, and he's got a totally different character to play. But he does have problems at times. He's dynamic. He has a lot of sides to him and he plays them well. It just kind of leaves you wondering, why isn't anyone else kind of up to this standard? Conclusion, I love Simon. Anyway, back to Jace. So a lot of people had an issue in the movie when Jamie Campbell-Bower had the British accent. I didn't really have a problem with it. And then they cast Dom Sherwood to play Jace in the TV show and everyone was wondering, are they gonna do an English accent or are they gonna make it American? Either way, I was kind of like, I don't really care. But if you think about it, Jace lived in Idris until he was 12. No, 10. 10? I think 10. And there are a lot of people that grow up with an accent and then they move to like America and they don't really lose that accent. Maybe he never got rid of it. I just watched 10 Things I Hate About You again last night and Heath Ledger has an Australian accent and they're talking at one point and she's like, is the accent real? And he says, yeah, I lived in Australia till I was 10. And he still has the accent, so why couldn't Jace? So they decided to go with the American accent, which was fine. Dom does a good American accent, but I'm wondering if it's hurting his delivery. He's very monotone most of the time. His voice comes out very grunty and whispered. Just yell! There were times when he was supposed to be super angry and he wasn't yelling, and I'm wondering if he was doing that because he didn't want to lose the accent. But whatever, we're past that. It's too late. It's too late. It's fine. Keep the accent. I don't care. The whole Jason-Alec dynamic throughout this season didn't seem real. They didn't seem like they were paired. You get all this background explanation from Izzy every 5 seconds saying, Parabatai is the strongest bond. They're like brothers. They fight together, blah, blah, blah. Then you turn around and you see Jace and Alec are always arguing and they're getting split up and they're fighting. They just don't seem like Parabatai. And I feel like that's not okay. Speaking of Alec, he is really pretty, but I felt like he was monotone a lot of the times. And this was fine at the beginning. I was like, oh my god, he's deadpan. Like, this is so funny. But there were also times when he was like supposed to be happy or giggly and it didn't show on his face. I feel like it was too far. But there were a lot of times when he came through, like that time when he was at the police station and he was trying to distract the lady and he like spills the the water bottle and he's smiling. But Izzy killed it. I loved her from the start. She had this badass feel to her and she had her whip going around. And I know a lot of people probably didn't like the fact that she's not like this mean, stern person because she doesn't know certain things that she knows in the books. But I think it worked well for her. I think she's sassy and it's funny, and I really liked her in this show, and that's basically all I have to say about her. And then there's Magnus. I like Magnus. I love Harry Shum Jr. I thought he did a really good job as Magnus. It wasn't necessarily the Magnus that I pictured while I was reading the books. That Magnus was kind of less flourishy, I guess you could say. Yeah, he was definitely different, but I do like him as Magnus. There was this one scene when they were in the alternate dimension and Magnus is trying to kickstart his magic and he's like trying to do it, and Clary's like, you usually have more of a flourish. So we have Maureen. I'm assuming she's supposed to be like how Maya is in the books, but she has the name Maureen, so I'm wondering if she's gonna also be like a combination of Maya and Maureen. Or is her name just Maureen? Maureen likes Simon, and at one point she tells him that she wants to date him. And then we start off another episode later on and they wake up in bed together. And at first I'm like, oh, is this Simon hallucinating? Because then Maureen turns into Clary and he's talking to Clary as if they slept together. She turns back to Maureen and they actually did sleep together. And you're just kind of like, Simon, what? Simon wouldn't do that. And then that's all we have. That's all of Maureen we get. Can they come back to that? Because I'm confused. And now that the Jace and Clary brothers storyline is a thing, now Simon wants to get with Clary, and that's probably gonna happen. So, Valentine. Alan Van Sprang, if you don't know, played the king in Reign. And I love that show. I watched that show with my mom and we both really like it. And he was on there for a while and he was this crazy king. He was insane. And then once he was cast as Valentine, I was like, this is perfect. He plays that role so well. He doesn't get the best lines at all. And I think that if any other person were saying these lines, it'd come out really bad. But Alan Van Sprang is so good. He's so good. Also, the person that played Valentine in the movie The Mortal Instruments also played King Henry. And then Alan Van Sprang, who played King Henry, is now playing Valentine. I think that is the coolest thing. Everyone else probably doesn't care, so that's fine. But I think it's cool. I think it's funny. Valentine in this show is killing it. And I'm sure he's gonna kill it in the next season too. But what I didn't understand is why we felt the need to put his secret lair in Chernobyl. And then later on, he's like talking to his little minion and his minion's like, oh, we should go to Renwick's. And I don't understand why we weren't there the whole time. Because they're talking about how it's like this great place because you can't track over water. And then we're there for like one episode and then we get on the ship. He goes to the ship. The special effects in the show overall weren't that good, but I don't know if we can expect much with such a low budget. So a lot of the demons looked like people in costumes or cockroaches. The killing of the demons looked like Lego Star Wars when they like burst into little pieces. I feel like halfway through the season, the Seraph Blade sound effects changed. At first they sounded kind of close to lightsabers, but then later on when they used them, they sounded like swords, which is how they probably should sound. I don't know. I'll see more in season 2. I really need to watch season 2. And the Seraph Blades in general looked really thick, but they didn't look real. Even there was one scene when someone's holding a Seraph Blade up to Camille's neck. I think it's Clary. And Camille's just kind of like moving around. It's like, you have a knife to your neck. You're not gonna move around. So they actually ended up using a lot of the props from the movie. I'm pretty sure they're the same props. I heard that was a thing. They had the big portal door from the alternate dimension episode, even though it was like in the middle of the Sealy forest and it was like in between these two branches that Melior like moves with magic. But they had that, and then they had the box with JC. I like how that came back around. And then they also had Isabel's necklace. It was fine. Why did it pulse like that? It looks like a toy. It sounds stupid. The red glow looked weird. It could have looked cooler. Another thing that was weird was Clary's putting things in paper. First of all, when she puts these things into paper, they turn out as if she drew them on with a pencil. Even with the Mortal Cup, like it's a cartoon drawing and she pulls it out and it looks real. So I feel like they should stick with one thing. Either she should put it in the paper and it looks like how it actually looks in real life, or it should look like the cartoon, like it looks on the cards. I don't think anyone actually cared about that, but I noticed it and I was like, why? I didn't follow the logic in a lot of this show. They kind of cut it off or just changed it halfway through. And I feel like for people watching the show without having read the books, I'm wondering if it was hard for them to follow because you just get new information out of the blue, like they just make stuff up. So when the vampires kidnap Simon, Raphael says, oh no, we didn't break any accords. We're not doing anything. You can't come get us. And then in the next episode, Jace or someone says, they broke the accords. But I thought they didn't. But definitely kidnapping a mundane is breaking the accords. Pick a choice and keep with it. Just make up your mind. And this portal shard didn't really make sense. So they're looking for Dot, they run into Magnus's club, and then she touches it again to try to see where Dot is, and she's like, I was just looking for her and she's gone, or something like that. And then that's it. They just start talking about something else, like, oh, what are we gonna do next? You don't even know she's dead. Like later on, Magnus tells them he can't feel her magic anymore, so she's dead. And Clary's like, no, you just stopped looking for her randomly and then moved on. Like, I don't understand. Why? So Melian's like, oh, you have this portal shard from a different dimension, and this portal lets you think about the person and then it'll take you to the person when you go through it. But it's in an alternate dimension, so you have to go to this other dimension to put this portal shard into it to make the portal so that you can find Valentine. But if they're in a different dimension and she goes through this portal and she's thinking about Valentine, why wouldn't she end up with the Valentine that's in that dimension? You'd think she'd have to use the portal in the other dimension. That was just kind of brushed over, and there were a lot of things in the show like that were just kind of brushed over. And then we're just supposed to follow the logic that Clary, who we all know is less competent or should be than Alec, Jace, and Isabel. Clary can just kill a greater demon, but then when it comes to fighting Valentine later on, Jace can't do it, Alec can't do it, Izzy can't do it, and if none of them can do it, then Clary can't do it. But are we supposed to believe that Valentine, a Shadowhunter, is better than a greater demon? Like, no. So another thing I don't get is why, with all this technology, somehow Isabel and Alec don't know that their parents are Circle members. And then Lydia Branwell shows up and she accidentally says it to Alec, and she's just like, oh, did you not know? As if it's something obvious, and you'd think it would be. And the technology is a cool thing, but I feel like it brought a lot of problems. You're also wondering why, if the Institute is this crowded with people, why they would let ex-Circle members run the Institute instead of any of the other Shadowhunters in there. Like, why did they pick them? And it doesn't make sense. And this whole thing with the fact that there's enhanced technology now in the Institute made me wonder, how are they gonna do this whole Valentine thing? Because with all this technology, you'd think they'd know what Valentine looked like. And then Jace would be like, why does that look like my dad? So I think the introduction of this whole Shadowhunters can shapeshift, that used to be a thing only Tessa could do. It was very obvious that he had shapeshifted. There wasn't really any way to get around the fact that they had so much technology and they would have known what Valentine looked like. So I think it was a smart ploy, but it's probably gonna cause a lot of issues in the future. We'll see. I think there are a lot of funny scenes in these episodes, and I think that was what they had going for them, were funny scenes. I think when they took themselves too seriously, it was very cheesy. The parts I liked the best were when they were funny and they were cracking jokes. There was this one part when Clary's like laying on the bed after she gets bit by the demon the very first time, and she's in the Institute, and I think Isabel's like sitting on the bed with her, and then Clary like wakes up and they like smack heads, and Isabel's just like, Ow. I'd like to point out that a lot of these scenes are Simon. Gotta do better, guys. Gotta step it up. You gotta be like Simon. The part in the very, very beginning when Simon is like on the phone with Clary and Clary's up in the church in the institute. And she's like, hold on, I gotta get dressed. I'll come right down. And Simon's like, why do you have to get dressed in an abandoned church? Is there a meth problem we have to talk about? And then later on, Simon's like, yeah, talk about sacrifices. I'm missing a financial analysis class right now. And Alex is like, okay, I can't deal with this anymore. But also, it was like 10 o'clock at night. Simon, what? You don't have a class at 10 o'clock at night. Like, after the memory demon gets Jace, he like falls to the ground and Claire says, is he okay? And Magnus goes, I don't know. Does he normally just lay there like that without moving? My favorite scene was when Simon is trapped in where the werewolves are in their little Chinese restaurant and he finds a menu. And he's on the phone with Isabel or something, and he tells them where he is, and he like looks at the menu and says, they have really inexpensive cocktails, but hurry, come! So those are my thoughts on season 1. I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just saying how I felt about the season. I thought it was good the second time around. Like, I feel like I didn't have as much of a dire need for them to be the same. I wasn't comparing them to the book as much. I was a little more open-minded, but there were still things that could be improved. So we'll see how the second season goes. For now, those were my thoughts. I just love this storyline and I think it will get better. I honestly do. I think that they already had a lot of things that they were set to change, like the lighting and stuff like that, but I think it'll get better. So I'll probably be back with a season 2 video. So yeah, I'm gonna go watch season 2 now. Talk to you later. Bye. 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 When Jace was like, no, don't confuse me with a warlock. And Claire goes, a what? Claire, how do you not know what a warlock is? Wait, what? But oh, there's this magic cup that I hid on the planet Bongo, but don't tell anyone. Really? Slippers. It didn't really match the book. So that's basically all I can say without giving anything away. Have it rhymed. Okay, anyway. Oh yeah, Magnus owns the club. I forgot about that. Bleh. You have the site!